everyone. I'm Elena Armijo, and I'm the founder of the C-Suite Collective. This is a company I created for executive leadership coaching and wellness that supports C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, and founders. Now, more than ever, businesses are running faster and with fewer resources. Burnout, overwhelm, disconnection, and disillusionment are the new norm for teams struggling with an old paradigm. At the C-Suite Collective, we believe deeply that providing massive support for your teams through executive coaching and holistic practices will create an inclusive culture, higher levels of performance, sustainable change, and the organizational impact you desire. You can find us at the c-suitecollective.com. How do we remember to keep our center in hard times? That's something we're going to look at in our coaching tip for the month before our next podcast episode. Our guest today is Parker Kane, a keynote speaker, podcast host, and beatbox entertainer whose viral McDonald's video has been viewed over 1 billion times. That moment led to an official McDonald's commercial and appearances on shows like Steve Harvey, Ridiculousness, and Outrageous Acts of Science. He now speaks at events across the country on personal branding, mental health, identity, and using your voice with purpose. I hope you enjoy the episode today and remember that something powerful resides within you. I'm here to support you in seeing it and creating it. So I want to talk a little bit about how we keep our center during hard times. Parker was so generous in sharing on this episode about some tough times in his life and what he's helping leaders and humans and basically everyone across the board learn and walk towards during tough times. So I have a couple points that I wanted to talk about in regards to how I think about centering my nervous system during tough times, and hopefully that might give you something to work through. So the first is come back to your body first. Body, somatically, breath, anything that has to do with your muscles, your actual body is really important in self-regulation and grounding. I'm still learning a lot about this. I did not listen to my body for a very long time, and it stacked up and caused all kinds of weird things to happen in my body, like eczema or sickness, all various things that we hear about in the world that actually develop from stress and not taking care of your body. And while I was healthy on the outside, on the inside, I was stacking a lot of emotional work and keeping a lot of stuff in. So tending to my body these days looks like going on a walk first thing in the morning. I love getting up, getting dressed for the day, and then taking my dogs out for about an hour-long walk in nature. It's usually really sunny here in Los Angeles, so that's always a bonus. But I really take in the world. I breathe in the fresh air. I listen to nature, birds, anybody that's talking outside, random neighbors walking by. And sometimes I'll put on some music because music is my soul. So that always helps me ground and get ready for my day. When I'm having a tough conversation that's conflict with one of my team members or one of my clients, or my clients are in conflict and it's getting, the heat is getting turned up in the room, that's a moment for breath. I always breathe deeper than I think I need to be breathing to ground my nervous system and try to feel the actual ground. Even though oftentimes I'm in my office, which has, a cement floor, there is an opportunity to still try to reach for those roots in the earth, to remind yourself that your body is safe and you're not able to numb or disassociate when you can feel the breath working through your blood cells and your body. The second thing I would say is anchor to what doesn't change. So when the world's swirling around you, really what we get is our vision and our values. I think that one of the things that I was talking to my dad about today was the idea that happiness is created by you, regardless of circumstances. And look, that's a really hard thing to think about sometimes, especially when the world around you looks many different ways. And I do believe that happiness comes from you, that it is internal, it's something you create, regardless of what you have happening in your life. And it's easy to forget that. So when I forget that, I ground into my vision for the world. What do I want to see? What do I believe is possible? What are my gifts for the world that I can contribute right now at this moment in time? And my values. Values are the thing that keep you grounded the most, besides breath that we just talked about. that will lead you when you are lost or when you're confused or when you don't know where you stand about something. Go back to your value system. For me, my top two values right now really have been for the last couple of years are leadership and love. I think those are the things that guide me the most when I'm feeling like I don't know what to choose or I don't know what to say or I don't know how to help. So anchor into what doesn't change. The third thing is let the hard times refine you, not define you. Staying centered doesn't mean being unaffected. It means we still get to have all of our emotions around what's going on or how we feel about ourselves or the state of the world. But the key is to ask yourself, what is this teaching me and what am I becoming? What am I walking into? What's becoming more true for me through this journey? So that we don't let it cement us or harden us into something that makes us immovable. So let the hard times refine you, not define you. Parker, it is so good to be with you. I am so excited to have you here on the podcast. I always like to tell the story of when I meet people the first time, and I met you speaking on yours, and you were just so delightful. You were so welcoming, clear, kind, and really intentional with your questions. So I felt very held by you, and I'm excited to share your story here.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words, and I echo them to you, and I'm just excited to be here. It's going to be a good episode.
Yeah, for sure. So, tell us a little bit about your story. Like, how'd you get started in this crazy podcasting world and on stages across the world? How did it all start?
So much goes into it. I feel like with podcasting specifically, I started getting interested in that in 2017. So it's before podcasting was even very popular, and really people didn't even know what the point of podcasts were. So it's kind of crazy to see how that has really disrupted the space, and it's like the main source of content now and everything. But
Yeah.
um, I started beatboxing when I was a really little kid. I was 7 years old and was obsessed with Justin Timberlake in Sync and
Yes.
just was
Yep.
trying to mimic what he was doing. And
Yeah.
it was just that little kid, first passion kind of situation, and doubled down on that. My parents got me that exact concert where I first saw beatboxing on VHS tape, and I destroyed that thing, just rewinding it over and over and over again, trying to do what he was doing. But ultimately, I pursued beatboxing ever since then, even still today. Like when I get
Wow.
hired to go speak at events, I'm speaking, but I'm also there to provide beatboxing entertainment as well. And really, all of that started with a viral video, which we can get into here in a bit. I don't want to ramble too much right out the gate, but the viral video story we'll get into.
We will. We will definitely get into that. Well, and I just have to say, a big conversation in my household here is around NSYNC or Backstreet Boys. So clearly,
In
I'm
sync for
picking up
me.
that NSYNC was you were team NSYNC and me too, by the way.
Okay, so
So
you've got family that are Team Backstreet Boys then.
I've got some people, some friends where it's like no Backstreet Boys all the way. It's always an interesting conversation to bring up at parties nowadays.
Yeah.
So,
Especially because Backstreet Boys is coming back. So,
exactly, on tour. And I think didn't NSYNC, I think NSYNC tried to have a tour as well, like a reunion tour with Justin. So I don't know.
man, we'll have to see.
We'll have to check that out. But okay, beatboxing. I love beatboxing. The first time I heard it live was actually my partner Aaron was in a group called Duende. It was an a cappella group that has been around for a long time. And that's why I heard it live on stage for the first time. And I remember thinking as a musician, how tired your mouth must be all the time after a show. Is this true? Or what's like the warm up that goes into this? Do you walk around your house like doing little riffs here and there all the time? Like, what's the experience?
It has stuck with me. So I've done it so much, just even all through school and everything, high school, college, where, it was my safe place to go, and it was my creative outlet. And I think I've done it so much that it just doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah.
Certain sounds, like, and I don't know if you want me to attempt it here on
I
Zoom
mean,
or
go for it. Yes.
if it'll even capture it. But the AI that's out there is not being trained on beatboxing yet. I don't think so.
Oh, thank goodness. We need the real beatboxers in the house. Yes.
But certain sounds like the low, like throat dubstep sounds,
Yeah. Yeah.
that can be very tiring, and I
Mm.
save that for important parts. The
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
that can be tiring. But as far as just my mouth, I can do the normal beatboxing kind of forever. And I have learned to circular breathe and breathe through my
hmm
nose while I'm
hmm
beatboxing. So I don't know if you'll be able to catch this, but so the breathing through
Yeah.
my nose is happening while I'm performing. So
That is very cool. That's something we learned in college with when we were trying to play multiple instruments, circular breathing. Yeah.
yes,
I'm wondering, since it's all about rhythm, you're basically the rhythm section at any given time. Have you noticed anything with yourself around how rhythms ground you? So I'm thinking, like in my world, right? We do a lot of healing work. There's a lot of talk that I've been reading about recently around sound healing and frequencies and rhythms from indigenous cultures and things that help people's nervous systems regulate. And has any of that been in your world, or have you experienced that yourself on stage with just having it be a part of your life?
a little bit here and there. It's actually fascinating you bring this up right now because I just was at a speaking engagement where it was an hour keynote
Ah,
and I wanted it to be something new. So I was kind of brainstorming that topic when I was creating my slides and everything. And I
cool.
think I don't have a lot to report on right now because it hasn't been something I would say I'm an expert in,
Sure.
but it is something I'm digging into and want to create maybe in my own realm of coaching or new speaking,
Nice.
where as a beatboxer, I've got kind of that twist to bring those into play. But I will say something that I started my keynote with was just some small light performance sounds of the heartbeat, the and
Yep.
then doing breathing sounds. And I was like, it's really interesting that we are all born here. We all come here with those two sounds and those two rhythms because our heartbeat is a rhythm of its own, and our breathing, kind of like the waves of the ocean, is a breathing of its own or a rhythm of its own. And those things, there's so many ways that you can break that into just how it's relevant in our own lives
Yeah.
with taking care of ourselves, breathing, taking resets, recharging. If you don't check in with yourself in that way, then you can experience a lot of burnout.
Very cool. You and I will have to jam on this in probably like another year. We'll come back and we'll do another podcast episode here because
Where is he now
where is
episode.
he now? Yeah, especially I think we're both headed in that direction around like what does sound mean in leadership and teams and uh
Communication.
communication, collectivism, community. I'm super interested in that. So I'm excited to see where your journey takes you in that
Thank you.
conversation. Yeah.
Appreciate it. You too.
Yeah. So tell me about the viral video. I don't know many people that have gone viral personally, so it's kind of fun to meet one and hear about the viral video.
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2015, and there's a story with this, I'll try to be a little bit brief with it and still get to the important parts. In 2015, I was in a very dark place where I was ready to give up. And I think that was because, or at least partly because of 3 or 4 years where I was not pursuing anything that was important to me or that I was passionate about. I
hmm
lost myself in the grind, essentially, is what that is. I was going on a church mission. I was going to college for something that my family had told me would be good. I was working my butt off trying to pay for college and everything. And I just was hitting this dead end where I was experiencing that burnout, that I just mentioned,
hmm
not checking in with myself, not staying true or aligned with what resonated with me and what I wanted to do. And I got to a very dark place where I was ready to give up. And so the story is how it happened. October 4th, 2015, I was laying down on my apartment floor crying. I was the only one at the apartment. I had like five roommates, and
Mm.
all of them were out and about. And I just was having this moment where my thoughts started to turn south. And I feel like a God, a higher energy, something kind of intervened, and started to steer my thoughts more positively, like, oh, just one more day, or you never know what's around the corner, or just stick around. And seeing my dog in that moment actually was a very
Oh,
important part too, because I was like, dang, like I'm not gonna leave her, and
yeah.
it was a
Yeah.
very pivotal moment where I could recognize my thoughts going from terrible to a little bit better and encouraging me to stay. And it kind of turned into a prayer. After that prayer,
Mm.
I got a call from my best friend Sean, who we're still friends. This was 10 years ago. We're still
Yeah.
friends. We still talk regularly, but he called me that night and was inviting me out to go to a late night McDonald's run with my friends. And I was definitely in the mind space of saying no. Like normally I would have said no to that, especially it was late at night, just having this hard time. But in my gut, in my core, I was just like, this is something you got to say yes to. You never know what's right around the corner. So I said yes. I got ready. I went out with my friends. It was like 11 or 12 at night. And we went to McDonald's. And while we were there, I mean, there's even without the viral video stuff that I'm going to get into, a key point there, I think, is when you're having a hard time to interact, don't isolate.
Mm.
And I think if I were to have isolated and just made myself stay alone, I could have had dark thoughts again. But by interacting instead with friends and people who are kind and supportive, that immediately had a huge impact on me. And so at McDonald's, they were kind, they were supportive, and they were encouraging me to beatbox. And they actually challenged me to beatbox for everyone in the McDonald's store.
Mm.
So it was kind of an adrenaline thing where I was like nervous and scared and having to push past my comfort zone to get in front of everyone that was there and tell them all to hush up and listen to my beatboxing.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I did that though. And as a result, everyone pulled out their phones and recorded it and thought it was cool, including my friend Sean. And he actually asked me afterwards, he showed me the video. He's like, "Hey man, do you want this?" And I genuinely feel like that was basically God working through my friend Sean saying, "Hey, this is your answer. Do you need it? Do you want it?"
Yeah.
And I said no at the time. I was like, "No, this is garbage. I
Wow.
look ugly. I don't like that angle. I could have performed way better. I've done better before." And I beat myself up and said no. And my friend Sean was like, "Well, can I post it?" And I was like, "Sure, man." And that night, well, the next morning when we woke up, it was almost 60,000 views. By the end of that day, the next day, it was over 1 million views. By the end of that week, it was 10 million views. And it skyrocketed to eventually, after about 2.5 years, it crossed 1 billion views through Facebook and all the different platforms and shares. So
Mm. Hmm.
that video took off, and that's what launched me into public speaking, which is like the next phase of my life, I guess, which I'm still kind of trying to ride that wave. For me, it's not about beatboxing anymore. It's more about the impact I can have. And I realized that speaking gives me a chance to help others' lives. So,
Wow. What a beautiful story. Parker, thank you for sharing the highs and the lows. I really got when you were sharing about those specific key moments in our life. And I think a lot of dreamers, founders, and leaders, those are kind of the group of people that I work with, all can point to something pivotal that had them listening deeper on a level than they might not have been with themselves before. And so I really get that intervention, and I'm on the same belief system that you are, that there is a universe and spirits and guides and God that lead us in our journey. And I really get the courage that it takes to listen in that moment.
Thank you.
and then go from there. And our little furry animal friends too that bring us along. Yeah, I have some of
Right.
those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
dogs have been a huge blessing for me in my life. So, but
same.
no, I appreciate that, and I think it's true. We all have the ups and downs.
Yeah.
We just have to. Our job is to stay, and if it's good thoughts, if it's good intentions, if it's good what we're in pursuit of, then it is from that higher power, and
Mm.
it is from them and for us, so we can make a difference. That's
Yeah, circular.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of staying in that line with purpose. So
That's great. Well, you said something really beautiful that I think is a highlight that we can already pull out around interact, don't isolate. This is a very key phrase right now. I think a lot of the things I'm seeing with teams and leaders in the world are, I guess I want to call it apathy that has been born of isolation. There was a great Gallup report that was just released around how most middle managers and everybody who's below in any kind of systems are beyond overwhelm, burnout, and isolation and are into apathy and just kind of safety, right? Given the state of our world. So, what do you think is possible around the interaction piece that you see based on what you've been seeing in rooms that you're giving keynotes to and your guests that you're speaking to on podcasts? What's the possibility here? And maybe some key ways people can practice that might be feeling stuck in isolation.
let's see. I feel like this is gonna be hard to explain, but I feel like when you're interacting with people, you're more free, more of a free version of yourself than you realize.
Mm,
Especially if interaction is happening like the way it's supposed to, and if there's not a lot of judgment or drama or whatever, and if it's just true, fun, creative outlet type interaction with people, then each individual is a lot more free than what they are on their own when they're trapped
mhm,
in their head and in their negative thoughts.
mm,
So, and I think that's true in the workplace. Everyone wants to kind of have their own office or work from home or kind of ignore everybody else. But when you do get to have those genuine community building, team building moments, you see that everyone has smiles on their faces. You see that everyone feels a little bit more free. At this last keynote I did, I played a game with the audience, which I'm going to try to start doing just from now on, where I get everyone in the room standing up, and the left side of the room says, "Are you going to let it go?" And then the other side of the room
mm.
goes, "Yes." And they realize that they're in a rhythm going back and forth. Are you going to let it go?
Yeah.
Yes. Are you going to let it go? Yes. And then I start beatboxing, and
Wow.
and it turns into this whole like dance party basically, and it's like, dang, see what can happen when we're all together and when we all stand up and when we all just let it go and be genuine people. That is so cool when that happens, and the energy is just different, which I think is essentially, I mean, that's more of a speaking type scenario, but it's essentially what happened when I went to McDonald's that night with my friends, where
Yeah.
I was in the dumps, and then when I went out with them, we all had a good time. So I think that feeling of freedom and happiness and being more authentically us, that knob gets turned up when you're with other people.
Yeah. The energy that we can feed each other. That's beautifully
Yes.
said. Cool. Well, so what do you think moving forward is possible for leaders right now who are looking to lead, movements like you are? I really hear like your keynote sounds like a party, man, and I want to come. I'm going to look for when you're speaking
Ups,
next.
ups and
But
downs. We'll talk about depression and all those things, and then we'll have
yeah.
fun.
Yeah, but even that, right? Some authentic communication around being human, right? And humanity. So, how can leaders support their communities? So, and this can be any type of leader, right? It doesn't have to just be a leader in a boardroom. It can be a leader in spiritual communities. It can be a leader of kids. It can be people that work with animals. Like, how can they bring this interaction mindset? Maybe if they're scared, like I'm imagining there might be some people that are like, I have no idea where to start. And of course, Parker, you could do that because you're a beatboxer and that's an easy connecting point, right? So what might you say to people are some gentle ways to start?
I would say, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is listening
Mm,
and and encouraging real over loud. To
Uh,
me, that's what resonates because I feel a lot of the times we're all very performative
mhm,
and we are all trying to check boxes and we'll go for whatever is louder or whatever it, society would say that is the right way to go about it or whatever what you've learned from other leaders maybe just this competitiveness where you're just building by being louder and performative. But when you can actually get to a baseline and kind of slow things down and get more real and listen, whether it's listening to yourself and what you truly envision for your team,
mm,
listening to each employee, even if that looks like observations, like just trying to get a feel for what they would want, what they thrive on.
mhm.
Yeah, that listening and just being real is more effective than being loud and being performative.
Perfect. Real over loud. That could be
Yes.
mantras everywhere. Yeah.
Right. I'm trying to figure out right now where I'm at. I want to have a book someday, and that's been something on my mind about writing a book, but don't know how it fits in yet.
How beautiful. That creative thread that's coming through. Yeah, and I really hear that that's actually a place to start for people is what's the realest thing you can say, the most vulnerable thing you can say, or where is the access point that has you quiet in your soul or in your heart that you can then um be connected to others with, as opposed to this is my way, follow my lead, come do it my way, or I'm right.
Right. Yeah, and I'm curious what your kind of go-to would be for that last question you asked about
Sure.
how teams can introduce this interacting instead of isolating concept.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of exercises that I love out there that I could really recommend depending on the type of leader and what you're looking for. But some of the things I've seen done really, really well. There's council training, which is
Mm,
run by out of Snap, the organization Snap, that has basically started this whole movement around sitting in circle and passing a talking stick and being connected. But the idea behind it is that there's a system and a way that everybody understands and can come into and drop into to connect instead of nervous systems being, dysregulated. So I like that. I like any kind of community that's going to have you stop and feel your heart first before your brain. So whether that means like an icebreaker question or sharing about your day or rosebud thorn, what's going well, what's not going well, what actually needs a little bit of work. Those are some of the techniques I've seen teams use. But I the recent example I have is really from myself, which is I sit on a computer all day and talk to people like this and my
right.
clients all day long in my office by myself. And I have really been craving more community again. And I do think this is it's been happening since COVID, but really a reemergence of what does community look like at this part of my life, at my age, being in a long-term partnership. That's also pretty different than if you're single, right? So I've really been thinking about that. And I joined a flamenco class this last week just to
Nice.
go dance and actually play with these rhythms that we were talking about at the beginning of the call, right? Like, I think there's something really deep and rooted into the earth around rhythms that can speak to music and can speak to a message in the world, whatever message you're trying to put out. And I didn't know if I would like it. And I didn't know, I didn't know. I just showed up and I had no idea if I'd be welcomed. I knew I was behind. This was like a series that like is already pretty far ahead. And I
Yeah.
just decided to go and it was lovely. It was so nice to just meet people. They were so welcoming. I didn't know much other than everybody's first name, but we all got together and we stood in a room and worked on some dance, and it was fantastic. So I think even that small way is a way to reawaken your soul so that you can bring more connection and authenticity to others. That really music fuels me so I can go out and fuel people with my music, right? So it's very circular, like you were saying.
That's beautifully said. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's part of listening, right? And also checking in with yourself is doing those kinds of creative outlet activities and pushing past the comfort zone maybe a little bit. It just sparks that adrenaline. It sparks all the things that your body needs and your brain and heart and everything to just be recharged again.
Yeah, for
And we're
sure.
all under way too much stress, literally everyone. So that kind of stuff is so much more needed than we realize.
Very, very, very true. So what's next for you? I know offline we've talked a little bit about, your purpose and trying to find your passion and your direction next. So what do you think from here? Where are you headed?
Just more of this.
Yeah.
Excited to have you on as a guest with that show. It's going to be a blast. But I have that podcast that I started 6 years ago and it kind of faded out and I stopped recording for almost 8 months because I started like therapy and like trying to get right with myself. I was going through a whole transitioning like phase of my life. But now I feel really excited about bringing that podcast back, and you never know the opportunities. Just like how I didn't know that going to McDonald's that night was going to change the whole rest of my life. You never know what's right around the corner. And so the only way to guarantee nothing is if you're not doing anything, if you're not showing up. So
Well said.
the podcasting thing is my way of showing up consistently no matter what.
Mhm.
And outside of that, yeah, just more speaking engagements, writing my book, and trying to figure out if I am meant to do something more in the realm of coaching and team building. So
Very cool. Very cool. The world needs lots of leaders, and especially the ones that are empathetic and caring and care about humanity. So go for it.
thanks. Yeah, I appreciate the encouragement. And like you said, we talked a little bit offline, and those were very helpful conversations. So I appreciate you encouraging me.
Yeah, always, always. Well, as we wrap up, what I always like to ask guests at the end is there anything that you want to share with the world going into, the next year or so? You have a lot of visibility into a lot of rooms and a heartbeat on what's going on out there. So anything that you would want to say is a call to action for the world.
Gosh. I would say to work on building trust within themselves and with whatever their belief is for a higher power. Building trust within themselves, and for me, God, those two things has absolutely unlocked like a whole new version of me that is building confidence little by little every day, just as I keep promises with myself and build trust and build confidence. That's one really important thing I've learned is confidence isn't something that someone has or doesn't have. Like, oh, that person's confident and I'm not. Confidence is a direct result of keeping those promises to yourself and building your trust. I think doing that and setting little, very, very tiny goals, like I'm going to walk 10 minutes today, setting goals and keeping those and just working on that will absolutely unlock a whole other version of you that can achieve the bigger stuff.
So well said. So well said.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your gifts, your light. You are a delight to be with. Every time we get on the phone, it's just so great to be with you. And I really just honor and respect what you're doing in the world. Thank you for taking time to be here on this show.
Thank you. Likewise. And appreciate everyone listening to your show. Keep listening. Every episode's a good one. I've been listening to some other ones before today. So it's a good podcast. You're doing a good job.
Thank you. If this conversation sparks something for you, let it move through your week. Take it with you. Take on one small action to move the ball forward. And if you want to join our community of leaders who are daring to lead with courage and heart, you can find that at www.elenaarmijo.com or www.thec-suitecollective.com. I reserve a small number of complimentary 20-minute sessions for leaders who want clarity on what they need and insight into what is getting in the way. The practical next steps that create real movement and results in your leadership journey. So you can schedule a call through the link below. It's in the description. Like, subscribe. Thank you for listening, for showing up, and for doing the work of being human together.